Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I have chosen a special topic for my 100th video on YouTube. A topic that has been covered to no end, but one that I feel I can give a fresh take on. Why gaming has declined. You see, recently we have seen massive layoffs across the gaming industry, from talented studios to smaller independent studios. Nobody is safe from the layoffs, except for of course the CEOs who are doing the layoffs. On top of that, we have seen another crisis emerge, with Xbox announcing a shift towards being a third-party publisher with more games set to release on competitive hardware. To top it all off, AAA gaming is in full-blown panic mode, as we are seeing many different publishers, developers, and analysts talk about how unsustainable, expensive, and risky AAA gaming has become. So why has this all happened? What led this industry to consolidate its power? How did we get to a point where developers are being laid off for short-term profit gains? Well, the answer is actually more simple than you think. Gaming has gotten popular. Alright, let me explain. You see, back in my childhood era of gaming, which is the beginning of the 2000s, gaming was very niche. Sure, there was money to be made, but it was nowhere near as lucrative as it is today. And just who made up the market for video games back in the early 2000s? Kids and nerds mainly. Because back then, video games was seen as a nerdy thing to do. It may be hard to understand for younger folks who grew up in today's world where gaming is everywhere, but gaming back then was like this well-kept secret that only a select few were in on. I remember telling my friend not to mention that we played Call of Duty in front of girls at school. That's how niche and embarrassing gaming was. But even though the gaming world was small, boy was it awesome. You see, anybody who was into gaming was really into gaming, and as a result, you would see games made for the hardcore audience that primarily made up the market. Take Microsoft and their jump into the console market, for example. They knew that E3 was not to be taken lightly. They realized that they could have been laughed off the stage, and the pressure existed to create a great console with an exclusive lineup of games. That is the perfect representation of what I mean. Marketing and selling products to gaming consumers back then was tough because gamers were very critical. But the advantage of selling to such a niche and critical audience was absolute perfection. Halo is a great example of what happens when talented developers are put under pressure and held to high standards. Halo was set to be the signature game for Xbox when Microsoft acquired the studio known as Bungie. In this documentary, Xbox talks about the challenges of making Halo and the expectations that gamers had. To that point, FPS games were never on console. It was only really on PC, but Halo would go on to change all of that forever. And it happened because of the pressure that was put on the studio. At one point, they simply locked Bungie in a studio and let them do their thing. Nobody was to bother them at all. And through trial, tribulation, and a little bit of crunch, Halo was born. And Bungie forever etched their names in the history of gaming. That is why I believe that as gaming has gotten popular, its decline has also simultaneously happened. You see, when you market to people who don't care about the quality of a game, and people who, honest to God, wouldn't even know what makes a game, franchise, or console great, you can get away with some real garbage. We all saw how bad it got with loot boxes, how bad it is with live service and battle passes. I mean, the studio Naughty Dog literally wasted years on a failed live service attempt that didn't even get shown beyond concept art. And some studios are just shameless in their attempt to secure a Fortnite-like bag. It's not a coincidence that as gaming's popularity has risen, the quality of games have also declined. That hardcore audience that once held all of these publishers and developers in check is now a small minority. Publishers and studios don't care about the hardcore audience anymore. They care about the newer generations of gamers that stream on TikTok for the trend of it. The kids that beg their parents for money to spend on games like Fortnite and Fruit Ninja. They care about the mindless and seemingly endless amounts of fans who will buy terrible sports games year after year simply for the roster update, because we know for damn sure there are not new features in every single Madden or FIFA game. In fact, some of them are branded as new features, but they're really just old ones that are recycled after a while. Don't get me wrong, the fact that gaming is so popular blows my mind, because again, I couldn't just brag about playing Call of Duty in front of girls back in the day, but today having a 5.0 KD might get you laid. And while that's awesome, it really does suck because now we're at a point where it's profits by any means necessary. That's the mindset. Ever wonder why Call of Duty has skill-based matchmaking? Well, it's for player retention. You see, noobs oftentimes don't like getting pedigreed Triple H style in every single match. So Activision created a system that punishes the hardcore players, the good players, and protects the bad ones, the casual players. This was not always the case, because even Activision during the Black Ops 2 era embraced noob stomping. However, that message was for the hardcore audience a long time ago. Today, the hardcore audience is niche, like I said. The new message for the casual audience, which is Activision's primary focus, is branded around skill-based matchmaking. This mindset of profits by any means necessary is not a new one. I mean, we do live in a capitalist country after all, but back in the 2000s, the mindset was to make money, but not at the cost of screwing over fans. I mean, now it's to the point where world governments have to get involved. It's so bad now that they will go as far as to screw their own studios with layoffs, canceled games, contracts that are only temporary, and full stop dismantling the entire studio to save money. Publishers have no shame or chill anymore. Former president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, God rest his soul, once said, "If we reduce the number of employees for short-term financial gain, employee morale will decrease, and I sincerely doubt employees who fear that they may be laid off will be able to develop software titles that could impress people around the world." He then went on to cut his own salary in half to prevent layoffs. If there was ever a living example of standing on business, this is it. That man understood the assignment. He truly cared about making video games, and clearly felt there had to be a way to make great games, be profitable, but without completely screwing over developers and fans. Nowadays, that sentiment is extinct. Publishers, like I said, don't care who they step on to get to those profits. Be it developers, studios, fans, they'll do anything to make money. I want to spend this last part of the video talking about the consequences of profits by any means necessary. First, we are slowly seeing the death of physical media because it's cheaper to sell you a licensed digital version of a game that they could easily take away from you at any point. And for those of you who believe they would never take it away, I refer you to Sony completely shutting down Funimation. I mean, Funimation literally is being shut down, and if you bought anything on Funimation, you're screwed. You can never get that money back or the product that you bought. That could happen in the video game industry. We are also seeing Xbox, a brand that has been in gaming since the start of the millennium, shift towards third party and embracing the idea of becoming subscription only through Game Pass. Why is this bad? Well, competition is good for everybody, and if Xbox simply becomes nothing more than the gaming version of Netflix, well, Sony could probably start making irrational, wild decisions that are clearly anti-consumer, but since they have zero competition, they can get away with it. Oh wait, they kinda already have, because Xbox has not been providing competition since the 360 era. Let's not forget about the other consequences of by any means necessary. Endless amounts of live service attempts in order to become the next Fortnite. God, that game has done irreversible damage on the gaming industry. These shameless live service attempts have also backfired and literally costed developers their jobs. Studios have been shut down and layoffs have occurred to make up for the bad investments. My final take is this: Nintendo today has it right. They created their own lane after the failure of the GameCube, and they have to this day prioritized their developers' well-being. They understand the value of exclusive quality games, which helps create competition. And furthermore, they have not abandoned physical media. I wish Xbox and Sony would take a few notes on what Nintendo has done, but that seems unlikely. I'm not sure what the short-term future holds for gaming, but long-term I fear the industry will take a turn for the worse, if it hasn't already. Instead of innovating, we will see deteriorating, all for the sake of endless profits. But make no mistake about it, this mentality of profits by any means necessary stems from the rise in popularity of gaming. Because so many more people are gaming than they were back then, you can get away with anything. Because the hardcore audience that once held a lot of power via consumer activism is now a niche community that is dwarfed by the casuals who will spend every last dime on a new battle pass, more V-Bucks, or whatever else microtransactions they come up with next. And that's a real shame. If you want my advice, buy more physical games. Buy as many as you can. Get into retro gaming and emulation. Since game preservation is also dying, be prepared for a new world where the video game industry doesn't care about what it used to be and only cares about what it can be next. Thank you all for for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to leave a like. I tried my best to articulate my thoughts for this 100th video, but now I want to hear your thoughts, so sound off in the comments section down below. Try to keep it civil, please. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you all in the next one, but until then, peace.